What's going on, guys and girls? It's Ghost Robo, and while 2017 is definitely in the books, there's still a lot of interesting gaming goodness to be examined. This right here is Metacritic's Best Video Games of 2017 report, a very cool document that helps highlight how the consoles and games of last year stacked up against each other. It's also of note because it really reveals whether or not 2017 was actually a phenomenal year for gaming like a lot of people said it was. Now, frankly, I'm surprised it's not getting more coverage because I think it's pretty darn illuminating, but we are going to dive in and learn a little bit about the year that was. Now, the first thing of note is that, 2017 actually was a phenomenal year for games. You'll see right here that 2017 saw two different games score a 97, which represents the highest year-end Metascore for any game since 2013. Now, unsurprisingly and slightly ironically, both those games were Nintendo titles, Zelda Breath of the Wild barely edging out Super Mario Odyssey, and both of them were on the Nintendo Switch, which really helped boost that system to become the fastest selling console in United States history. Now, Nintendo aside, 10 different titles scored 90 or higher in 2017, which is up from 6 in 2016. So if you felt like 2016 was a little bit lackluster, it was. And I know that overall, Metacritic really doesn't matter. People can enjoy games that score 50, and they can hate games that score 95. But as a statistical document, and as a way to numerically review the year, it is very telling that 2017 was actually good, and they make sure to point out that What Remains of Edith Finch was one of those 90 or higher, and that it's an indie game and a new IP. You'll see that the consoles themselves all have a similar Metascore, and this is something that happens just about every year. When push comes to shove, the average is around 70, and that is not interesting. But what is interesting is the good exclusives column, and you probably could guess this, but man, is Xbox One struggling. One exclusive, 75 or higher. One. The Nintendo Switch, a brand new platform, had 13 in just 9 months. The PlayStation 4, the king of exclusives right now, had 20. The PC had 40, but I feel like that's a little bit bloated given how many games come out on PC. But hey, it still is a nice start for the personal computer. Great games were pretty evenly spread, but again, Xbox One is clearly lagging behind. And I've read some interesting articles of late, and if you look at the lineup, 2018 probably won't fix that for Xbox. I don't really know what they're doing or what they plan to do, but I don't think that Sea of Thieves is going to be that answer. They need some big, bold new franchises, and I hope that they can really energize their base and excite all of us at E3 2018. Now, handheld-wise, the Vita and 3DS are kind of on their way out, but the 3DS still crushed the Vita with 7 good exclusives. Now, if we look at the 90+ club, the best reviewed games of 2017, it's pretty darn cool. A lot of different titles, and in fact, a lot of titles that harken back to classic gaming, which is important to note. You know, we're in an era where everything is about the biggest, boldest worlds, about how long you can play the game for, about how invested and involved you can get in these service-based titles. But when you look here, look at what's scoring well. Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, a bold new take on a classic franchise. And it definitely was a very creative and very forward-thinking take, but it was still single-player, and it still focused on mechanics and gameplay above all. Super Mario Odyssey, another new take on a classic franchise, a little bit more playing by the rules of what came before, but again, a gameplay and single-player focused title. Breath of the Wild on Wii U comes in at number 3, Persona 5, a JRPG that is very single-player and very much about the gameplay. It's also about the graphics and the style, don't get me wrong, but it is gameplay and story. Divinity Original Sin 2, another RPG. Okami HD, a re-release of a classic action adventure. What Remains of Edith Finch, there is your indie title from a really cool publisher, Annapurna Interactive, who I think are doing just great work lately with unique games. Undertale, an RPG that is really a throwback. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, again, a game that is a redo, but it is a redo of a classic franchise that focuses on great gameplay. Shovel Knight Treasure Trove, holy cow, another classic throwback type game. And Bayonetta, what do you know? Another retread. So this may be just coincidence, right? There were a lot of classic franchises that got new entries, and there were a lot of really top-tier ports. But I think it's interesting to note that in terms of Metascore, in terms of critical acclaim, in terms of the by all accounts, best games of the year, none of them are of the genres that people are freaking out about. I think you can definitely do really cool, gigantic world games. I'm not saying that. But in an era when we see a lot of publishers saying that they're abandoning single player, that they're abandoning the stylistic game design of yesteryear, I say why? Because the highest scoring titles are right here in front of you, and they are nothing like The Division. They are nothing like what Star Wars Battlefront 2 has done with loot boxes. They are nothing like Ghost Recon Wildlands. They are nothing like Destiny 2. They are not these games that try to do it all and keep you involved and invested for years. Granted, scores are not sales, and I know that at the end of the day, money drives everything. I'm well aware of that. But at some level, I feel like we have to evaluate and look at where the industry is going, and if we just want sales or if we also want great games. And as you can tell, great games are very gameplay-centric, and great games are not what everyone says is the most awesome, newest, latest trend. They're really actually a lot of callbacks to what made gaming foundationally great from the get-go. And they have updated graphics, they have updated style, they have updated ideas, but they still focus on that hands-on experience rather than some pretend world that you can lose yourself in. And that's fine for some games, and you'll see some of them pop up here. But I do think it's interesting to note, and I'm one that always will champion single player, always will champion storytelling, always will champion these types of games. Persona 5 was the best PlayStation 4 game of the year, but Horizon Zero Dawn, a new IP, nearly crept into that 90-plus club at 89 and was the PS4 exclusive of the year. PS4 game of the year was Persona 5. It also released on PS3. That's why they're not giving it game of the year. And you can see that here is the list of those highest rated games. We have Nier Automata, a very unique game. We have Nex Machina, a very classic arcade-based game. Neo, a very difficult game that does still really focus and devote itself to gameplay. Injustice 2, a fighter, glad to see that up there because NetherRealm does great work. Night in the Woods, another indie. A really strong year for indies. Wolfenstein 2, what do you know? A throwback, a gaming-driven throwback with awesome storytelling. Zero Escape, I can go on and on and on and on and on, but where are the games that people say are so phenomenal? Here's Destiny 2, and it did score an 85, which is good, and I really like the campaign of Destiny 2. But since then, I don't see a lot of great things being said about it, and I hope that somebody at these publishers and developers are taking note of this and trying to adjust how they develop. I think it's important. My better judgment says that they won't, and we're just going to get more and more and more, but I hope that we can also get a little bit of this kind of stuff. We scroll down to Xbox One. What Remains of Edith Finch was their game of the year. Their exclusive was Forza Horizon 3 Hot Wheels, an expansion, which is interesting. Cuphead and Forza Motorsport 7 both scored 86, which is good, nearly at that 90-plus club. And part of the problem here is that Cuphead also released on PC, Forza released on PC, so they're not getting a lot of exclusives. Now, if we want to say that those are still Microsoft exclusives, well, then you can bump this list, because then you're going to add those two, and if we scroll back up to where it said how many exclusives they had, give them a couple more. So they've got 3 or 4, still way less than 13 or 20. Back down here to Xbox One, you'll notice again, N++, Thumper, Cuphead, Observer, goodness gracious. I do want to point out Resident Evil 7. This was one of my favorite games I played in 2017, and it is a new take on Resident Evil. So again, classic franchise, new take. They did something bold, and they were rewarded with a really beautiful score of 86. Even Assassin's Creed tried something new, but again, they still stuck single player, and they didn't try to give you that crazy of a persistent world. We didn't have 100 assassins running around, interacting and selling and trading. It still was a Bayek-driven adventure at 85. Sports titles doing pretty good. NBA 2K18, Forza, F1, Enter the Gungeon. God, that's my favorite Switch game. I love it, and it is a roguelike that is, again, a throwback. I can just say it over and over again. Nintendo Switch, obviously, the hottest thing of gaming in 2017. Breath of the Wild, phenomenal. Mario Odyssey, phenomenal. And you look down this list and you see a lot of great indies. SteamWorld Dig 2, Cave Story Plus, Stardew Valley, Rocket League, Axiom Verge, Lovers in a Dangerous Space-Time, Sonic Mania, the smaller Sonic game that was made with the help of young developers worked out way better than Forces. Sometimes it just drives me crazy. Snipper Club's doing so good. Neurovoider, really great. Rayman Legends, platformer, performing phenomenally. A bold idea, Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle, but a gameplay-centric idea, 85. Where are the games that everyone talks about? And I know that plenty of people talked about Zelda, Mario Odyssey. They've won all the awards pretty much, so they are getting their props. But I still feel like at the end of the day, if you just go out into society, yes, the Switch this year has changed things up, and yes, the Switch is getting a lot of love, and rightfully so, and thank God. It's great to see Nintendo back in the limelight, especially after everyone said that they should basically abandon making consoles and go to a multi-platform game developing company. Not happening anytime soon, obviously. But you don't see a whole lot of those big tentpole movie theater trailer type games in here, do you? It's really just a lot of down and dirty, great games with gameplay and story at the focus. And a lot of single player. A lot of single player. PC has Divinity Original Sin 2. We've also got, again, Lone Echo, a VR game, which is very interesting. Res Infinite, XCOM 2 War of the Chosen. Again, this is just mind-blowing. Hollow Knight. Robo Recall, love that on VR. There's PUBG right there. Okay, so I guess it did get reviewed. Correct me on that earlier point. It was reviewed. It was 86, and it didn't quite reach the 90 rank, but I think it is of note. Battle.right getting some recognition. That's great. Even StarCraft Remastered, Planescape, LA Noire. Where are the new properties? Where are the PS4, Xbox One era properties? And maybe it just happened to be a down year, that there weren't a lot of them. And maybe next year is going to blow us away. Spider-Man, God of War, Days Gone. They're going to really impress. Maybe even somehow Crackdown 3 and Sea of Thieves and State of Decay 2 are going to come through in the clutch for Xbox. Maybe it will be a year where the tide turns. But I think it's very cool to see that what people think are the top trends, and they are the top trends, aren't actually the strongest trends. They're not actually the highest scored trends. It's actually the things that made gaming fun from the beginning that set the tone for 2017. It's gameplay-driven experiences. It's single-player-driven experiences. Let me know your take in the comments down below. I'm very interested to hear what you guys and girls think about this. I want to know if you feel like I'm interpreting this correctly, if I'm completely misreading it, if you see how single-player and gameplay-driven games really are the backbone of the industry still in 2017, or if you think, nah, that's just reviewers being nostalgic and it should be an open-world, service-driven game-type industry in 2018. Let me know what you think. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope it was interesting to you. I found it fascinating. So thanks so much for watching. Fantastic day. Until next time, everybody, I love you. Drink some hot chocolate, and we'll see you all later.